When people first think about my undead pirate dude, they think of zero skill, brain dead champ, only spams. Well, I'm here to tell you they're wrong. Dredge is easy to pick up, but difficult to master. Those that hate on Dredge, they're just projecting. They hate how they lose to such a quote-unquote one-dimensional champ. Here's a hot take for those that think Dredge and his spam is super OP and takes no skill, are the ones that are just salty for getting smoked so many times by him in their gold rank. Anyways, I'm here to help you further tilt low elo players by hurling info at you in this Dredge guide. One of the key differences between a noob Dredge and a good Dredge is talent choice. 99% of the time, in Platinum and below, people pick the Scuttle talent. I get it, it looks fun, you see everyone in your elo run it, and adding another explosion in your reload helps them be less aim dependent. In my opinion, that's all the perks Scuttle has to offer. The best talent for Dredge by far is the Hurl talent. Let me show you guys a table of the differences between the standard Hurl and Scuttle. Hurl is just miles better due to the better poke at range, better dueling capabilities because harpoons are easier to hit because of no trajectory, insane sustain with Mortal Skewer 5, not wasting your first 1500 credits on deft hands, ammo regen so you never have to reload. Have I made my point? The last talent to go over is Abyss Spike. Abyss Spike is alright, but seems like a high risk, high skill talent for the same effectiveness at best compared to Hurl. I personally do not recommend this talent and is very rarely seen in ranked. So for the Hurl talent, I have two different loadouts I use. One is the standard loadout that you see most Hurl players run, and it's max Dark Bargain, max Mortal Skewer, with a little bit of cursed weaponry and expensive vault as a filler, same with health. You can never go wrong with this. This is always safe. I have a second loadout I like to use that really pisses people off, I've seen. It's where I take off from Dark Bargain, but I still have the sustain from the Mortal Skewer. And instead I have 750 health shield after dropping below 50. I really like this, honestly, and I tend to prefer this loadout because it really pisses people off when they try and 1v1 me, and then out of nowhere I have 750 more health that they have to chew through. So yeah, I tend to prefer this one, but at the same time, this loadout is very safe as well. Alright, so we know what talent is best for Dredge, but now let's get into where you should play Dredge. Dredge is very map dependent, where he's best in closed, small maps such as Ice Mines, Jaguar Falls, Bright Marsh, and Stone Keep. After the sniper nerfs, I also find Frog Isle to be a good Dredge map as well. But outside of those 5 maps, let me repeat: Ice Mines, Jaguar Falls, Bright Marsh, and Stone Keep, and Frog Isle, I wouldn't recommend playing Dredge on maps outside of the ones that were just mentioned, because Dredge doesn't have the mobility on rotation-heavy maps, such as Frozen Guard and Shattered Desert, nor in large maps where there's too much open space and ground to cover with your quote-unquote spam, like Timber Mill, Fish Market, and even Splitstone. So all in all, sadly, Dredge is super map dependent, but hey, what can you do? You can't play Dredge everywhere, or else you'd be broken. Now let's get into Dredge's kit for the Hurl talent. Generally, you want to use harpoons for long-range poke, or short range if you need health recovery, and use your primary fire for close range or predictable enemy movements. Let's talk about my favorite combo: Hurl plus Shot plus Hurl, which equals 2,450 damage, which is the exact amount of HP a standard max health Squishy has, Squishy being a non-tank. This is ideal for 1v1 situations in the mid-range. First, you hit your target with a harpoon, then aim your normal weapon shot near the feet of the opponent. If the shot hits the floor or the wall first, the shot will take a full second to explode. You may ask, why don't you just hit the target instead of the feet? 2 reasons. First, if you miss your target directly without aiming at the feet, they wouldn't take any damage. If you aim at the feet, you almost guarantee that you hit the target with at least some splash damage. Secondly, the delay on the shot exploding is actually a good thing. Remember that you're playing against human beings and not bots. If they see your shot and their HP doesn't drop, they will assume that you missed. However, with a harpoon follow-up, the weapon shot and the harpoon shot can hit nearly at the same time. Let's say you hit one harpoon and then one direct shot on a squishy. Their health would be at 1/3. Therefore, any competent player would dash away and find cover. If you delay your shot to match the timing of your second harpoon, the target would see their health at 2/3 and most likely think they can still win the duel, then to get decimated by a 1650 burst. I cannot tell you guys how often I use this combo and how much it helps in winning duels. That's why when I play, you guys see me alternating my fire frequently for a greater chance of utilizing this combo in the midst of battle. Let's talk about broadside. 95% of the time, do not use it. It's such a complete noob trap. Unless you have the reaction time of a koala bear doped up on eucalyptus, you won't get hit by the broadside. I know you may defend broadside by saying it's not meant to do damage, it's meant to zone and cover important spaces like the capture point. Although it may be true, spamming your primary fire instead would also have an equal effect in zoning, as well as the potential to deal damage. That's why I find broadside useless, except for very, very few situations where you can utilize the time delay, such as Term ult and Fernando ultimate, enemies frozen by Atlas ult, and a couple of other rare circumstances. All in all, do not use it. It consumes more ammo than you'd like, and it's not going to hit anything unless they're really, really bad. Alright, let's get into Dredge's most important ability, the teleport. It's the one that differentiates a boy from a man pirate. This ability is what keeps you alive, as it's your only defense. Therefore, telespots are super important to keep you from feeding. The easiest and most important tip is to place your telly in a safe spot, around a corner or a wall, where the enemies won't see before you initiate your Poonacide. Next, be sure that when you place your second TP, it's not in direct line of sight from your first TP. Let's say you're taking fire and then you TP out. You don't want your enemies to be able to still shoot you, or else you're just going to die and feed. And we don't want you to feed. Lastly, be very careful with mid-fights and your second telly. See, at the start of the mid-fights, that's where everyone likes to press E at the same time. So being extra cautious at this time is beyond worth it, so you can escape enemy ults by already having your second TP set it up. Now let's get into Dredge's final ability, his ultimate. God, I hate this more than broadside. It's about as useful, but you feel more inclined to use it since it's your ult. I'm not sure about other Dredge players, but personally, getting his ult to not only land in the place where I intended, but also do something other than just zone, feels like a fool's errand. Countless times I aim at the enemies to ult, and it either appears on the other side of the freaking map, or it's at my own feet. In my opinion, getting picks with it normally feels like a waste of time. So when should you use it if it sucks? You wait. You wait for opportunities where you see two slow-moving targets next to each other, such as two tanks stacking for the best chance of getting a pick, or at least dishing a solid amount of damage. Similarly to broadside, use it to counter ults like Turum and Fernando. Use the time delay. You can also use the ultimate defensively by purposely aiming at your feet when getting heavily pressured up close and TP away. You may not kill stuff most of the time, but it brings in an additional level of chaos to distract your enemies and time to escape. Dredge's ultimate also has knockback, so his ultimate can counter Ash's ult, assuming she has little resistance, and separate her from her flag. But lastly, you can use Dredge's ult to punish execution ults like Bora, Zen, Drogos, and even Khan. You may not save your ally most of the time, but at least you force a trade. And that's all you can expect from his ult. Alright, we went over his kit, we went over the talents, we went over the map. Now let's go over what he gets countered by. As for DPS, his hardest counter is by far Willow. There's not a whole lot you can do when she dead zones you by your TP. Not to mention, Dredge isn't fond of her ultimate either, since if you're not the hurl talent, because you can't hit her in the sky. She gets really difficult to hit, and you're super easy to kill. Personally, I would avoid drafting Dredge into a Willow, because it's just that difficult. For soft counters, I would say snipers, but after their recent nerfs and the fact that Dredge is normally played on bad sniper maps, I personally no longer see them as counters. Another soft counter would be Drogos, because he can sometimes be hard to hit similarly to Willow, but I don't think this matchup is too difficult. Lastly, Dredge into mobile flanks can be hard, but they are simply skill matchups that you need to practice if you want to get good with Dredge. Because once you find the right timings to hit your harpoons, like between the abilities of Zin's counter, or Andrew's reversal, or timing it when Eevee blinks, like those are just skill matchups that one has to practice. Now let's talk about the tank matchups. Although Dredge is known for crapping on tanks, I find 2 tanks to be very annoying to deal with. Terminus is also a Dredge counter for very obvious reasons. He can siphon Dredge's damage and throw it right back at him. Dredge also doesn't have the mobility to run away from an approaching Term unless his teleports are set up well. So, the best way to deal with Term is to set up a telly in one lane, rotate to the other lane. If the Term starts to approach you, you can set up your second telly and teleport to your first telly in the other lane. And you keep doing this because there's too much distance that Term can cover, and you'll still be able to spam in the areas you need to. Also, when you see Term ulting, you can set up your broadside to give him a large burst of damage when he's revived. Or your ultimate, assuming you have it up. Another soft counter I'd say is Makoa. Half Shell got heavily nerfed luckily, so it's not punishing enough to stop Dredge from bursting the shield down anymore. However, Makoa's hooks are still problematic for Dredge, because the hook will displace him from your TP, and he doesn't have the mobility to dash away. In a relatively coordinated team, the Dredge will normally be dead after a hook. To avoid this, place your TP in between you and the Makoa if you believe he's going to hook you. That way, if he hooks you into your TP and you safely TP out, while you're able to make the call out that Makoa's most important ability is now on cooldown. Alright, so that's everything I have for my boy Dredge. I would love to see more Dredge players in this game, as they're too rare of a breed. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you did like this content and you learned a lot. I stream almost daily on Twitch at twitch.tv/fps_Snoopy. I love to see you all there. I'll catch you guys later in the next guide, which should be Vora. So yeah, have a good one, guys.